All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining this panel discussion we have upcoming and to talk about the topic AI for social unity. So today we have our moderator Adithya. So just to give a bit of background of Adithya, he's a final year student of computer science and business at Nanyang Technology University. He is also a recipient of the Nanyang Scholarship in NTU and the Singapore Airline Youth Scholarship for Junior College. He has a keen interest in artificial intelligence and especially natural language processing. He is also a keen follower of politics and Indian classical music and is a part-time master of ceremonies. So now I'd like to introduce to you our panelists. We have first Mr. Bo Sheng. He's a PhD student from NTU SCSE under Alibaba Talent Programme. Mr. Naveen, who is a co-founder and CEO of Diglog Fintech, which is a fintech startup. And we have Mr. David Ho, who is the managing director of APAC and EMEA for InfoCepts. So now I hand over the time to Adithya to take over this panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Harris. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I just want to say a very warm welcome to all of our extremely experienced panelists and to our dear audience. Welcome to the first panel discussion at STCAI. The theme of this discussion is AI for social unity. The big question on our minds is really, is AI, artificial intelligence, a force that for social cohesion or a development that will set us apart, either domestically or globally? So before we begin, I think it's really important to get to know who we are talking to. And we really value our audience's interaction, so please pay attention to the profiles of our guests. First, let's begin with Bo Sheng. Maybe you can just give us a quick introduction and a summary of your experiences.
Okay. Thanks, Adithya, and thanks, everyone. I'm very glad to be here to be the panelist for these sessions. And I noticed that I'm the most junior one for panelists. So besides giving my 2 cents in these sessions, I also learn from our other panelists. So I'm currently a PhD student from NTU SCSE. So maybe my perspective will more from an academic perspective. And before that, I was a consultant in PwC Consulting, working on projects in this region, including Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and also even to South Africa. So 2 years ago, I went to US and visit Silicon Valley, and I met my friends over there, and they told me how AI is changing the world. So that makes me very excited about these technologies. And that's why after coming back to Singapore, I decided to do my PhD in AI and to focus on natural language processing. So I'm very looking forward to the following discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bo Sheng. I think one thing Bo Sheng hasn't mentioned to us is that he's actually being funded by an extremely coveted talent program to Alibaba. So yeah, he may be underselling himself just slightly there. Next, and not at all the least, from a very different perspective, we have Naveen, who's had a long and distinguished career with HP and has started his own startup. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I guess maybe let me start with HP because I think most of my life I worked at HP. Again, across the regions, the last, I would say, 7 years in Singapore. Before I left HP, I was the head of architecture and innovation lab at HP. Before that, also worked at supply chain and IT. So again, long career. I'm not going to bore you with what HP does. I think you all should know that. Now, for the past, I would say maybe 5 months back, again, it hit me like I think most of the people who have started the companies, where you go through this phase of, I don't know, craziness or suicidal tendencies where you said, okay, maybe I need to start a startup. So so me and my co-founder, who actually is a close friend, based in Singapore as well, we saw an opportunity, especially with the micro and small businesses, in terms of democratizing the digital opportunities that provides for them today. One of the challenges with micro businesses today is that the ability to embrace digital technology. Not only, of course, the skill set gap, but their understanding of technology, and also a lot of other challenges in terms of financing kind of prohibits them from embracing technology. So we thought this is an opportunity for us to really see how we could not only help the MSMEs in terms of transitioning from an analog to digital, and to embrace technology for the MSMEs. But also through that process, we saw an opportunity to actually digitize that data, because the bigger, I would say, aspirational vision for us is the data that doesn't that exists in like notebooks, spreadsheets. In most cases for these businesses, it doesn't exist anywhere in a digital format. So our goal is to really first, again, if you look at AI or ML kind of process, first we need to make sure that we can convert them from analog to digital. So our challenge is, how do we really take these businesses who are used to manual processes to easily, or with less painful, move that to digital. And then at the same time, we probably see how we could exploit that data. So our goal is to actually convert most of the MSME processes, whether it's payroll, HR, the cash, credit book, leave management, claims, all that processes we want to digitize through mobile, because mobile is the only device most of the small businesses are more comfortable with. So our goal is to, through our platform, convert the analog to digital, the MSME processes. Once the data is there online, then we could obviously look at many different aspects of financial services that you can provide. So anyway, that's essentially what we're trying to do. So this is not specific to Singapore. We just launched in Philippines. Eventually, of course, most of Southeast Asia, we see platform being developed. So anyway, that's kind of my background. Now, specific to AI, I would say there are a lot of concepts of AI that we are using, because we want to obviously make it easy for the small businesses to use this platform. So we are obviously using the voice activated data entry concept, of course, GPS, image recognition. So concepts like that, where it will actually ease the pain or make it easier for them to move from, again, analog to digital. So anyway, that's kind of my background, and maybe we can talk as we go on some of the specifics around it. So thank you. And again, really excited. So thanks for inviting me. So look forward to a really engaging discussion.
Thanks so much, Naveen. I think as we go ahead, we'll also learn that HP does a lot more than just printers and laptops. So looking forward to that part of the story.
Since I'm not with them, I don't know if I can share a lot, but I'll try. Yes. Yeah.
Sure. Last but not the least, of course, we have one of SCSE's, the School of Computer Science's distinguished alumni, Mr. David Ho, who is Managing Director, Asia Pacific at InfoCepts. Maybe you could just give a quick introduction.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me to this panel. And I would love to have a conversation with the panelists and also the students, and which is in AI. Well, my background is actually very much in IT. I graduated NTU Computer Engineering, and I started my career very early on to join a startup. And disruptive technology at that point in time is amazing. It's just internet. The disruptive technology was internet, and the arrival of digital camera and internet at 14.4K. So that enables a lot of images and information that can be collated in the same thing. So the startup I did was in the insure technology, and now it is bought over. Is actually part of the Silver Lake, Singapore Silver Lake, the core banking or the insurance arm of it. So it was a very exciting time, young people in a 20-something and create a company that uses the latest technology. And over time, in my career, I see that there's a lot of disruptive technology came, mobile came, then cloud came, the cost of computing come. So all this created at every stage opportunities for innovations in a not a linear scale, it's exponential scale. So, and very lucky to be have a career in IT in those years, and it's very enjoyable when something amazing, you can do something amazing with technology, especially you can find that you can create good in the society. Now I'm with this company called InfoCepts. Now InfoCepts is a 17-year-old company. They do only one thing, which is data and analytics. And in analytics, it's inclusive of like artificial intelligence, AI. Now there's about 1,000 people in these organizations just do nothing but data analytics and AI. So I'm very excited in this company because we are the people who bring the technology to the business. They're actually using it. So for us, it's not a concept. It's an everyday work, and see how it benefits the people at every moment of their work, how we bring digitalizations and AI, and we can see how this is going to transform the workplace, the business that people are in, and eventually, of course, the society that we are in. So happy to join the panelists this afternoon, just have a conversation around this.
Very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for introductions. So just for the audience to know, these introductions, I hope, serve as a good basis for also your questions later, because as you can see, we have someone who's specializing in natural language processing, another professional who's worked all their lives in various AI applications within their company, and then we also have an expert in data science. So depending on the perspective that you're interested in, please do send me your questions. We'll be taking questions through Zoom, to the Zoom chat, or to the Hoover platform. We have lots of volunteers around, so there's no need to be shy at all. And if you're feeling brave enough, and I really encourage you to do this, just unmute yourself and ask. We'll be more than happy to take you. This discussion, which we're going to get started now, I think is going to be divided into 3 simple chapters. The first is to understand where AI is right now, so a very quick introduction. The second is how human beings interact with AI. And the third is really, how do we prepare for a world where this has happened? So I think given that we have a quick introduction for our participants, maybe it's appropriate to understand what is it that we can actually do with artificial intelligence in various fields. Maybe we'll shift things around, and maybe we can start with Naveen first. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what is the potential of AI within the industry?
Yeah, so maybe I'll give some specific examples of where we are using AI. It's again at the lowest level for a common man, right? So this platform, so obviously, as I mentioned, it has payroll, HR, credit, cash book, and approvals. So one of the common use cases for these small businesses, they provide credit to their customers. And of course, everything is tracked on a notebook or a manual way. And there's no way for them to really refer the data easily. And then more importantly, they don't really know the credit worthiness of a customer. Imagine, I mean, these are just small customers, obviously, and the amounts are very small. So now there's no way there for them to go back and look at history and say, what is their pattern of payments and what is their balance and all. There's nothing to really go about that. So again, this platform, through that, we are obviously using AI algorithms to quickly respond back to the customer in terms of their credit worthiness, just for that transactional, right? So that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is like in the payroll. Now, we all assume that payroll may be very routine, rule-based. Maybe there's not much opportunity, but there are quite a bit of AI that can be applied there. Now, in terms of HRs, for example, now we can predict in terms of attrition, for example, in terms of the patterns of the way the employees either take leave or their performance. You can pretty much predict. So there are algorithms that can predict their attritions. So we are using some of these, again, as I mentioned, the AI models to predict that. Now, within our own platform, as I mentioned, we are using the voice-activated data entry. Now, imagine, of course, many millennials may not agree to me that maybe voice-activated is much easier than typing, right? Because most of them would like to type. But I think, in general, research shows that you're much more efficient if you can, do a voice-activated. You can do a lot more things to that. So that's the future. And imagine taking someone who's really not used to typing, right? The small businesses, because they are maybe writing. So obviously voice is the most common medium with how we communicate. So we are using voice activated to do all these commands. They're used to that. So that's an aspect where we think it's helping. So it's the ease of the productivity, the ease of doing business, and also to communicate is where I feel we are using those within our own applications.
Thanks so much. Maybe David, we could get your perspective in the sense of how do companies actually use services within data science, different techniques to realize actual value on the ground. Like for many managers, I think they still have the opinion that this is still much of a gimmick, but I'm sure there's a lot of potential in there that you might be privy to.
Yes, this field is moving very fast. So I can show you right now in the enterprise customer. So enterprise customer means is like, let's say banks, let's say telco. It's no more a gimmick. In fact, right now, if you do not have an AI initiative in any organization, your CIO might call you up, your CEO might call you up, and say that, hey, what's going on? What are we doing here? So I tell you, the everyday conversation I have with head of analytics and CIO is like, they already have something going on, right? That's AI. So give an example, and since Bo Sheng is here, he's a natural language processing guy, right? So I'll give you an example, very interesting. So we implement the software, and this is one with one bank and one telco in Singapore. I don't want to name names. Yeah, I think I can name M1. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we can name. So what did they do is this. Once upon a time, people run the business by looking at a lot of dashboards, right? Dashboards. Yeah, all the data comes here, look at the dashboard and say, how are we doing this business unit, these particular functions, this manager, have a dashboard. And dashboard is great because it brings data to the managers and they can do a lot of things with it. What's happening right now is that, and this is just last 1-2 years, is that new technology come, which is, we call it search and AI-driven insights. What happens is, so instead of looking at a dashboard, you, in the enterprise setting, you look for information like the way you look for information in Google. And then there will be certain keywords that is in your company, and you search like this customer of this region, last quarter, profitability, and just search it like a language, like the way you put in a Google, right? All the data will come out. Now, I mean, for some of you guys, if students that may not have not joined a company before, you might think, of course, why wouldn't you expect that? But the actual inside the enterprise and what you are using, which is a consumer grade search, is slightly different, right? So, so you can do search tab, and on top of that, they would also recommend what are the things you need to look at if you search such information based on what your previous colleagues have done. They would say, this is what you should recommend you to look at. And then they would also give you insights, like, what we used to have is business analysts to analyze like things like, let's say something is like so outside the norm. You need a business analyst to say, why is it this particular area is like not so good, that's not so bad. Now the AI actually does that for you. They give you that information. So I'm not talking about 5 years from now, I'm talking about today. Is they are using it right now in Singapore in the telco. So it's not a yeah.
It's actually a little funny when we say this is the future when it is really just the present.
It is the present. It's people are using it now. Now, of course, the adoption is at a very different rate at different organization, right? And right now the challenge at organization is like who know how to use data, AI, and analytics fastest to create competitive advantage. And the stake is very high. The company like Grab, who know how to use internet to disrupt a certain industry, wins the big way, right? So a company now is looking at how to use AI to gain that kind of competitive advantage all over. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I saved the most technical question for Bo Sheng,
Okay.
given your research. It's because, especially given your background, because for me, somehow AI seems to be a pursuit in measuring what is measurable, and whatever is not measurable, make it measurable. That is the way I see it. And for some reason, for me, I see artificial intelligence as a way to achieve that, especially natural language processing, because there are so many things that we previously thought were subjective and impossible to quantify that suddenly become things that computers can process. So I think just apart from not just natural language processing, but where are we in the sense of what are the kinds of things we can do at the research level currently that is the cutting edge?
I think this is very good questions. I think if you look back to the history, like in 1956, there's this Dartmouth workshop. They start to define what is artificial intelligence. We have gone through such a far journey from that point of time. Yeah, like I think before that nobody believed in AI, but now AI has already everywhere. Yeah. So like what you said, from the research perspective, what can we do using the AI technology? I think we can do a lot of things. Like maybe I can categorize into three fields that I'm more familiar with. Number one is computer vision. So like a lot of people knows like for auto driving, it leverage on computer vision a lot. Yeah, you use a few cameras and then you can already detect what is going on on the road, and your car can drive safely. Yeah, so this is I mean, this is not like we're not talking about the future. We're talking what's happening now, like in Silicon Valley, in China, or even in Singapore. We can see a lot of auto cars. A few days ago, I just see a robot on the way. It's quite exciting.
Yeah, NTU
Yeah,
has its
yeah.
autonomous buses.
Yeah, yes. And then for natural language processing, I think we also done a lot of progress. Like for example, before that, we don't believe that computer can understand our languages. And now we have a lot of robots can actually talk to you, assist you on certain process. And I know this company in America, they are actually convert what's the IT support into the like NLP based services. So I mean, imagine in your company, if you have maybe like 500 people, and these 500 people may have a certain requirement on the IT support, and all of them may raise up similar questions. So and before you use the AI to help you, you need to hire maybe 10 people or maybe 20 people as the IT support team. And it is actually quite a high cost for every company. And now you can use maybe NLP to answer quite a lot of questions. Maybe you need to just let NLP to help you answer 20% of the questions. It's already save a big cost for a lot of companies. Yeah, so that's how NLP technology is helping the companies. And the last one is about the recommender system. I think this one is the AI system we're dealing with every day. You open TikTok, open Facebook, open everything. You like Alibaba, you open Taobao, every day they just recommend things that you are interested in and attract your attentions. So I think it's pretty cool now. Okay.
I think just as a quick follow-up, as this is just a matter of curiosity.
Yep.
Over the past 2 decades, we've seen a huge advancements in deep learning,
Yes.
mainly because of GPU hardware that's become cheaper and cheaper.
Yep.
Do you see that do you see the potential in the future for other alternative types of machine learning taking off because either we have new advances or new problems?
I believe so, because in the past 70 years, our biggest takeaway in AI is that if you have a bigger model, you have more data, you achieve better performance. So until now, this is still the trend. So I think like for now, we're training a larger and larger models. Like a few years ago, it's only millions parameters. Now it's billions parameter, and a few days ago, saw it is 100 billion parameters. So I think this is quite big. When you have such a big model, it's very powerful, but at the same time, it's also very cost expensive, and it's not very environmental friendly, because when you train the model, you let a few hundreds GPUs running, and yeah. So what we're looking for is that can we have actually a small model and achieve a better performance? This is one direction. And the second one is, can we understand what deep learning is going on? Like what you say, deep learning now is already become the traditional machine learning in a lot of fields, but we still don't understand what's going on, and it's kind of like a black box to all of us. So if let's say you rely on something you don't understand, it's very dangerous. So another direction is that to understand what's behind deep learning, and this is called explainable AI in our field. Yeah, and then the last one I think is about the reinforcement learning. Yeah, because everyone knows AlphaGo and AlphaZero, all this. Yeah, it's a very powerful technology that can like come up strategy to win a human, but normally it's still under the setting of a games and like very special settings. So how can we use reinforcement learning to a real life application? For example, recommender system.
Stock trading.
Yeah. Stock trading, all these things. Yeah, so I think we still have a lot of work to do, and if you are very interested in this line of research, I think you should jump in and do a PhD.
Thanks for the advertisement. I think we have a lot of people who might be willing to do that here.
Yeah.
But I want to add a bit about that in the things that are right.
Yeah.
So it's so much investment doing AI. It's a lot of great things have been research and developed. But the industrial actual every day, right?
Yeah.
The supervised learning, AB, that is transforming the world right now. It's like we're still consuming that. We're just still making that work in every field. So I think just now you asked the question, I say, which part of the thing that we can use AI in the society? I remember I learned this from Andrew Ng. He's a Singaporean boy who became founder of Coursera, right? He's a data scientist chief data scientist of Baidu. He said, anything that you have to use a second to think, you can replace with AI. Right? It takes 1 second. That's supervising. That means you replace that human with supervised learning, and that transformed the whole all the industry that we know. So I'm not sure what the Bo Sheng will give us next, but it's unimaginable for me right now.
I think the please go ahead.
Like for industry, yes, we are still implementing the supervised learning in a lot of cases. I think it's a very powerful solution, because you have the money, you go to annotate the data and do a supervised learning. Is very powerful. Yeah, but now what we're looking for is whether we can do it in an unsupervised way, because
Yeah.
we already accumulate a lot of model, a lot of data. But when we see a new data point, a new case, can we just use our old model and adapt to it? And this is very cost efficient way, and I think it's a better solution.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for everyone pitching in. I thought we'd just change tack a little bit. So now that we have a brief understanding of where AI is and what kind of impact it's having, I think the big question now on actual social unity is, to what extent are these solutions complementing the existing workforce as opposed to just completely replacing it? I think we can once again start with Naveen, who's actually looked at this and faced this problem.
Yeah, so I think that's a challenge. I think that's a challenge for everyone. Coming from enterprise and then now working closely with small businesses, where obviously they're struggling with what's happening right now. And then the fear of getting redundant, or shutting down shops. I think that's a real fear. Now, but at the same time, you can't stop the trend. And it has already, again, the challenge for these, again, I'm talking about more small businesses, is that you have to find a way to get involved. And I think what we are trying to do is kind of complement that, which is you have to find a way to still embrace the technology. And then you have to find your way in terms of how you can participate in this trend. Now, to your bigger question is it really a threat? I think as David said, I think anything which is, as I said, I mean, you said 1 second. I think I would say, yeah, I mean, it's more than that now. you can pretty much you can predict pretty much what people are, because your behaviors are being monitored, right?
Yeah.
And the cultural norms are getting, pretty much standardized, right? Whether it's because of people traveling and all that, the trends are being embraced, right? So you pretty much could make a lot of assumptions, with a very high quality accuracy. So I think that is a challenge for everyone. There will be a lot of disruption for sure. I mean, especially. I think I would say I'm kind of like what China model is, where they share everything. The data is shared. I mean, there's no fear of sharing data. I don't know, it's because of somebody forcing you. I don't think so. But again, they share data openly, right? So that's the reason why their AI programs are, I don't know, I'm just making up stuff, like 5-10 years ahead of other developed countries, right? Just because the data is available, right? Everybody can use data, the services and all that. The maturity of AI programs are much higher. So, but they have been able to use that. I mean, from small businesses to large enterprises, everybody uses AI there in all kinds of different use cases. Where there is resistance, like not resistance, but where there's no much embracing of technology or use of AI, like India, even in I would say US, where the data is protected, right? There's a lot of fear of sharing data. So I think that's a challenge. And I feel as a society, some societies are, as I said, China will probably do well because they know the value of it. In some societies, I think there will be a lot of pain before, of course, everybody adapts and learn from it. So I would say pretty much AI obviously it can be applied to various industries. I mean, healthcare, you name it, it's there. So, but I would say we should not be probably looking at threat or opportunity. Eventually, it is obviously an opportunity because it's going to make a better life. But there will be a pain. Anytime there's a change, there will be some pain. So,
thanks so much. Would either of the other panelists like to add to this?
I have 2 cents. My 2 cents on this topic is that,
Please.
yeah. So when people talk about how a lot how AI will replace like the people's jobs. I always think that all the AI scientists, they are not evil people who just want to replace the jobs
You sure?
with AI. Yeah. So actually, we're doing AI for good. Yeah. So, and I have an example is that that one of my classmates who has a startup in China, and he's actually use the NLP technology to help the salespeople how to do sales. So his model is very simple. Is that they have a lot of direct data from the salespeople and customers, and then they use the voice recognition system to convert to text, and they use NLP technology to understand what are the good sales tactics. Like for example, when do a cold call, what should you say? And we want to like cross selling, what should you say? And this become like a kind of a guidance for the new salesman. And they found this model is very powerful because they're actually not replacing people. It actually make the salespeople more powerful. So I believe this is what the future direction. We are not actually replace the workforce, will make the workforce more powerful. Yeah, so that's how I feel. Yeah.
Okay. I'm actually a very optimist in that sense in the see how this will benefit the world. So when the first time I switch on a computer, learn how to switch on a computer in my life is year 1 computer engineering. The first time. So unimaginable, right? So, and I saw internet came. Internet was not publicly available at that in well, we're the second batch just coming in, and then mobile came in, and you would think that there's a lot of conversation like this computing that time we call it computing era would take away a lot of jobs. So it didn't turn out that way. And didn't turn out that way for the last 40, 50 years. It turns out it helps the economy. So, and just follow what Naveen said, right? I think also the questions that put there. The countries that may not move as fast, let's say with China, actually they will also benefit from this AI because the technology there will be, the research is there, they've gone through that, but very quickly it will be commoditized and spread to the world. It's just like, I remember when I first go to China like 20 years ago, they don't build landlines and phone lines. They don't have that. You have that in all Southeast Asia. They leapfrog a generation. They all start with mobile. So many people haven't experienced how to do the dial phone and everything. They don't know what it is. They don't know how to, probably, I have watched a very funny YouTube clip that people actually do not know how to use that phone to call. They didn't know they had to wait for a dial tone, right? So it is good because this technology is additional asset to the mankind, which is available to all of us. And the good thing about AI is that it's so easily, I mean, I could swipe a credit card, have the same technology that they use to, almost the same, right? That they use DeepMind use to beat the Go player. It's available on the cloud. I can buy that, with a credit card, and it's very cheap. So the price for this technology is very cheap. So it's actually how we use it in every country, how we use it. Yeah.
I think a very linked question to these, to how it's changing, is also what can companies do to get their people ready for it? Because obviously many departments in various companies, especially big old ones, are going to have lots of trouble getting up ready. And I think David was talking about how in the past people used to look at dashboards to make decisions. I think we'll find that even today there are companies that don't have dashboards yet. For them, the future is still dashboards, right? So I guess the next question is how, and this is a question that we got from our comments as well, how do companies and governments actually deal with this? Maybe let's start with companies. How can a company get its workforce ready for an AI world? Maybe David?
So it is like any technology that we have. So this is, AI is a huge thing, right? It's a huge thing. But along the way, there are many things that come along technology. Is let's, for example, like Zoom, right? How do we get company to adopt Zoom? It's just use it. It's natural, right? It's like in every time the technology is relevant, it's actually the adoption is surprise everybody. It's actually very easy. So I'm not actually worried so much of that the adoption by the business users. It's actually very much into the mindset of the senior management organization. They may have blind spot. People might think that AI is far away, right? So like I have a personal goal of going to the small and medium sized company in Singapore and tell them it's now, it's using it now. Don't wait. Figure out how to use it to differentiate the business. It's not 5 years from now. It's important for them to realize that. So if the managers, the owners realize that and say, hey, let's use this. Actually, it's very easy. It's very intuitive. And actually, that tool I tell you about how you use, like you use YouTube. Do you learn how to use AI when you use YouTube? No. It just recommend to you, and you keep clicking. Like I keep watching Olympics. So they keep telling me to showing me stuff. I keep watching badminton. It keeps showing me badminton, right? It's intuitive. It doesn't need anything. I find that the managers, our governments need to be open in this. And we are like the most tech savvy. We are really tech savvy in the government, and they don't have holding back to use AI. Yeah.
I'm actually curious as to what Naveen has to say on this.
Yeah, so coming from a legacy, so since I'm not HR, I can say it's a legacy legacy enterprise. Yeah, because now, so it's a huge challenge in my view for companies like legacy companies, because it's AI is not, it's a concept, but a lot of things have to come together for you to really do AI. That starts with not only your business analysts need to understand the value of data, how you look at data. Your data engineers need to know how to get the data in the systems, how to integrate the data. You have to know your data scientists, because today one of the challenges, and it's not unique to one company, it's actually majority of the companies, although their title will say data scientist, but majority of the time they're spending in data data engineers. Data engineers, right? I would say 80% of the time is data engineers, because they are trying to get the data, make sense of data, integrate data. So it's not that easy to, because you need massive amount of data that makes sense. So there are a lot more practical challenges of doing AI, right? So in a company like HP, where of course it's massive, data is everywhere. So trying to do AI in that sense is a huge challenge. But I will also tell you that one of the trends that is actually a lot of companies are realizing, including all the cloud companies, is to be more decentralized. There is no way they have time to go and centralize everything and do your processing. So that's the trend. I'm sure David and other can vouch. Now the trend is to go more decentralized, to go to edge, and your ability to do modeling, your ability to do processing, and deploy your solutions quickly on the edge is more important. You don't have time to bring all your data into one place, do all that, and then go into, because everything is changes so fast. So I think, so company like HP is hoping that trend happens faster. That way they don't have to invest too much on centralizing everything. So I would say that is a huge challenge for companies. But again, they're hoping that others will help them, like cloud companies, to do the edge processing of all this. Then they can, get on with it, and then maybe help process that. So that's my sense is technology will probably help them, but I don't think that's time to really do all this, because there's a lot more has to happen for AI in a big company.
Yeah, I agree with Navi, and this is a big challenge for a lot of companies, but I also see it as an opportunity for a lot of companies. Yeah, so I think what is more efficient, like if you look back to the history, what is more efficient is always replace what is less efficient. Yeah, so I don't think it's stoppable. It's unstoppable. Like AI will spread to other industries. So maybe that's one example is about the construction industry. We always think that construction industry is moving very slow. It's very traditional industry, but I can tell you in Shenzhen, a city of China, this year they say all the construction company, if you want to bid a project, you must include all these like AI devices, smart devices, in order to be qualified. Yeah, and the government just put on a list of companies that, like for example, the camera, you should go to maybe Huawei or other companies. Yeah, they already have this kind of mindset. So I think what is the biggest advantage is your mindset about AI. Yeah, if the company, the government have the mindset of adapting the AI technology, they have a big advantage. If let's say like a few years ago, some of my ex-colleagues, they still feel that AI is still like is the if and then the rule-based system, then probably it will be a big challenge for these people. Yeah. So from my perspective is that if you stay open-minded and adapt to the change, and it should be fine. Yeah.
I
I guess
actually
the
want to
next question
address
is,
one
oh yeah,
more question. Sorry, I want to address one more question because I saw the question Ruben asked, right, about concern in the developing countries. So this is because it's very interesting. This is one of our NTU School of Computer Science Engineering graduate. He's a Vietnamese. He studied in Singapore. He founded a company in Vietnam. So what does he do is he created something called micro point of sales. So if you are, let's say, a entrepreneur, you have a little shop and sell a few clothes, you can go to a micro point of sale, which is a handphone. And then you can, then it's a cash register. You sell a piece of, let's say, a dress. And it's connected to the internet. And at the back end, they would resupply the goods to you. And based on the location where they sell, they start to learn what is best selling in that particular part of this. Okay, this is a 700-man company, profitable company right now in Vietnam. Okay, you think about that, right? They leapfrog. Do not know. I don't know how many generations. I never heard of this before. And the first time I heard of this in Vietnam. So it would definitely take up a lot of cost in the getting goods to one place to the consumer, and they use internet, they use phone, and probably there's a recommendation engine there that use some AI. So it's embedded there. So I can't help but just being very optimistic about how this technology will make life better in developing countries and or very advanced city like Shenzhen. Yeah.
I think one of the concerns embedded within Ruben's question was also the fact that much of AI's development is happening within very large conglomerates, either within China or in the United States. And a lot of the benefits, even though the benefits are felt across the world, the ultimate best gainers are going to be these conglomerates, either in Silicon Valley or Shenzhen, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see this becoming just more and more entrenched, or is this more likely for AI development to become more democratized across the world? And yeah.
It's a very tough question. Yeah, like on the one hand, because now the AI is very data hungry, it's a data-driven technology. So that means if you have more data, you have a cutting edge compared with other places in the world. So that's why if you look at what is the most advanced AI technology coming from, it's always from America and China, maybe some part of European. Yeah. So yeah, for small countries, I think maybe you cannot develop very big models, like to benefit all around the world. But maybe you can do some localization, and yeah. But to me, I think it's still quite challenging for them. Yeah, because if you are a big country, you have a lot of data, you have a good infrastructure. is quite powerful. Yeah, so we have to admit this fact. Yeah, that's my perspective.
But it's like this, right? You know, MRI machine, magnetic resonance imaging, MRI machine, right? So, do you know how many countries actually produce these things? Very few, you know.
Yeah.
Probably 5 companies in the world do that: Philips, Siemens, and Chinese company, American company. And you know what? I still enjoy this, the benefits of technology in Singapore, although Singapore did not produce this.
Yeah.
It's available to us. It's available everywhere in the world. So I don't have this thing about the AI because US and China is very strong. Then, oh, they're gonna control the whole economy, and then we got nothing else left. No, they thank you for developing this technology. Thanks DeepMind, Google, all these things to do this. Now all of us gonna enjoy this, but they're gonna enjoy this in a different way. Our economy would produce things that is just like we have competitive advantage. This is economics 101. We do what we do best. Singapore, maybe entrepot. We're very good at entrepot, but we never be a very good palm oil producer. We got no land, right? So we do what we do best, but we will enjoy the fruits of that.
Yeah, I agree. So if let's say you can adapt to the technologies developed in other countries and to your local context, and this is a lot of people are doing. Like for example, in my field of research is we're doing a lot of multilingual transfer. Like we develop a system to transfer to a lot of local languages like Malay, Indonesia, and also Singlish. So I think it will create a lot of benefit to everyone. Yeah, so don't worry that this technology, it can be only built in those big countries. Actually, you can still use it in your places. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would like to add to both. I think I agree, but I think a lot of these countries, even if where the technology is not that mature, all these data privacy policies that all the governments are considering, right, from GDPR to China CSL, every country is actively coming up with a policy to protect the data. So that's actually that actually will help to democratize how the AI, all these use cases, because the algorithm or the technology is not a differentiator anymore. Anybody, I mean, these are not something fancy, right, that you cannot replicate, but you cannot replicate the data, and data is located in within the country. So that's why countries have become smarter, that they want to protect the data. Like obviously they don't want to give a blank check to Google or Facebook or Baidu or so that's essentially what everybody is doing, is a country where they're protecting the data and make sure, especially around privacy, but more than privacy, I think that's the concern, is to make sure that the value of the data is more extracted locally before it actually goes outside. So I would say some of this will help. And I think actually, I personally don't think that the technology itself is a big differentiator. I think anybody can easily copy and replicate that. So
Thanks to that perspective. I think if we can just slightly shift back once again, because another aspect of how humans interact with AI is a question of fairness. Because AI is being used for quite a lot of applications, some of which are controversial. So, for example, in several countries, it's in Shenzhen, I believe, if you're caught jaywalking, your face goes onto the screen and they identify who you are, for example. Whether or not that's a gimmick, there are some countries who have increasingly more and more applying AI in different, more controversial areas, not just in China, but also in the US, for example. Do you think it's ever possible for us to develop global standards for what is acceptable to use AI for? Maybe we could start with Naveen. I know this is a question that not too many people have thought about.
No, I mean, I think the policies that governments are, so actually there are laws, right? There are governments have laws and procedures to how the data should be used. I think it's important that as long as the individuals, the companies, and the government follows their established processes, I think that's a start. Now, and then of course, ethics and fairness, all these are, again, people can always play around the edges or cross those, right? So those are, those will be a challenge on like anything else. But I feel there are established practices within the government, within the country, where it establishes what you can do, what you should not be doing, right? So that is there. So that's where I think the fairness and ethics should come in. But also about individuals, right? In terms of when you are coming up with to your question earlier, will it make people redundant, right? Some of these use cases. So that's some of these is an ethical question. So if I come up with something which will redundant, like, is it going to replace all tellers or, all this fast food, everything, right? So those are things that you have to see, how do you balance those things? And I think companies are looking at it, I think, objectively now, I would say. Nobody's kind of going recklessly and replacing everything, because they have the technology now. It is true. They can pretty much replace a lot of workforce, right? The technology is there, but they are being responsible, because there is they are trying to transition the people from what they do today to where they can reskill and upskill and then redeploy them. So that's one example where I think those things are being monitored and governed. But I also think that there are other extremes where people are obviously abusing that, right? Because haves and have-nots, right? So especially on financial industry, I think there is a lot of these things going on. So, I mean, these things eventually will sort it out. But I think a lot of it comes back to people playing by the rules, the companies, the governments, everybody. It's very hard to, again, because it is the potential is so high, it will be like anything else. If it's a resource which is going to be give you the competitive advantage, whether it's a government or a company or individual, they will take it, right? So that's the reason why you see the big economies are fighting over the data, right? That's essentially what will happen. Eventually, they get sorted out. But I think that is definitely something that this has to be governed. So yeah.
I guess another question is also, what are the different kinds of de-biased? So because each country has developed its own set of ethical principles, there's been a new development of a subfield, which is on ethical fair AI, right? So we're trying to purposely engineer systems where data is representative of different ethnic groups and different types of people it might deal with. So maybe you could, Bo Sheng, you could tell us about how that is done in natural language processing, for example.
So I guess that comes from what actually Bo Sheng was saying, right? It's like when you do AI model, you do not know how they came out. You cannot explain it. So the huge research coming out is explainable AI. And then when the model comes out, sometimes because it's analyzed a lot of data, and it's actually incorporated our biasness inside the model. So that will help. So, and this is the things that a lot of people are thinking about. But I feel my personal opinion is like it comes to the question of morality, ethics, and a norm of a society. And is ethics, morality, a norm of the society? And it's based on society. So let's say we are in Singapore. Our norms in our society in Singapore is very different than norms, let's say, in US and in China, right? So I think that the ethics in AI is to me, it's more like ethics of technology rather than just particularly AI. So and also dependent on the society we are. So want to make sure that people like Bo Sheng feel that they're really well supported because they're doing great stuff. There's nothing inherently evil about this AI. So example, right? Yeah. US is a society with guns. We would never accept that in Singapore, right? It is our norm. It is our morality. There's no gun. Nobody must carry a gun in Singapore. And that's decided by the society, right? But is a gun good or bad? I don't think so. I don't think there's a good or bad with guns. A gun is immoral. It's a piece of technology. It's how each society use it, how individual use it. So in that conversation, I really ethics and morality, the importance for me is that choice of the society, and don't forget to make sure that all our scientists feel that they are the good guys.
Thanks for that. And I'd actually like to get Bo Sheng's perspective on what we are actually doing in that
Okay,
direction.
so I think as the technology is developing, we notice this problem. For example, for NLP, we have this we have a lot of we have a lot of language models which can actually generate the tests by themselves. So and we found that actually because we are training on the data, like for collecting from Twitter or Facebook or other places, but actually all this training data are already quite biased. Like for example, a lot of people will write a lot of racist, a lot of text about racism, about like hate speech, all these things. And if you put this as your training data, what you can get is a model who can write things like this. Yeah, so yeah, we start to notice this, and we are kind of like adjust from the data perspective. We need to have a clean data set, and from the model perspective is that if you have a data that already have all this kind of hate speech, how can you shift them to a normal test? Yeah, so this a lines of research is also doing that. We call it ethical AI or and this. And so from my perspective is that yes, we are putting effort on this, and we notice this trend, but unfortunately, I mean there's still a gap we need to close. Yeah, so now before you implement any AI system, maybe what you can do is you need to evaluate what are the potential like impact of this, and ultimately it's not about AI, whether AI is good or bad. I think AI is neutral. The people behind AI using AI, yeah, is more important. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a knife. You can cut vegetables or you can kill a person. It depends on what you want to do with it.
Yeah. That's true.
And that's why
I
in
guess
the governments and in the companies we have governance, right? Governance, ethics committee, and a governance committee for all sort of things. It's just not AI. Everything it can be used to be a good and bad.
I guess so. With that, I think let's talk about how we can prepare for the future. Like we've talked about what the consequences are where we are. So I guess the first question is, what should we be teaching in schools today that we're not teaching them right now so that they can be ready for the future? Anyone who's interested to pitch in, please.
I think they should. Naveen first.
No, you are expert, so you should.
I think they should teach the students how to do Python from primary school now.
I think they are actually.
Yeah.
In fact, participated in a workshop where we had to teach primary school kids.
Yeah.
Python.
So I think for a few days ago, I just talked to my friends. They say she's actually like doing some children education now, and they told me they already like prepare the textbook for and the software to how to do coding like for primary school or even for kindergarten. I thought maybe for our generations, like the Word, Excel, PowerPoint is kind of like essential to us. Then for their generation, I think coding, everything like this, math is very essential to them. Yeah. So that's how I feel.
Yeah. So I'm on the ground zero of the business, so I can say a bit about what is that. So I have a program right now. We are trying to hire 30 people for the STA, if you know what that means. There is a IT arm of the Ministry of Defense Singapore. And I'm trying to work with NTU SCSE because it's a good AI company. 30 engineers, data science and data engineers. And exactly what Naveen is saying, right, is that actually in this field, 80% of the work is data preparation to get the data right. And then the model is just maybe 20%. And what's happening in the real world right now is very good software company has really created certain package. I'm not sure in school you guys encounter things like data equal. Does that make sense? You know, okay, so there's a tools,
Afraid
right?
not.
Yeah. So what they do, what
Several.
is actually what's usable in the organization right now is that they buy a piece of software, and they have a bit of data preparation, and then the model is already incorporated, and then you can use those models, and then it's incorporate ML ops so that you can actually get into the enterprise. So this is a practical usage in the everyday's world. So when you graduate, you have a lot of theories and things like that, right? But eventually you probably need the tools to get this going in someone's organization. Right? It's no more theory, it has to apply in the real world. You know, I'm trying to find the gap between where the graduating students, data science students, or data engineers, and let's say Ministry of Defense, the gap. And InfoCepts, I want to be the one to make sure they get the last mile, and then make sure that they can work with the Ministry of Defense for 2 years, and then come back and work with me for other, let's say, other commercial enterprises in banks or in telco and all. So that's the program I'm trying to create.
Thanks for that. Naveen, do you have a perspective?
No, I mean, it's like my son learned Python. So, but I think again, understanding the data. I think again, understanding what data means is I think that can be taught early on, right? I think that's important. Again, all this how you process the data and all that can be learned, over time. But understanding the value of data, how you use data, why it's important, I think those can be taught, I would say 7th, 8th, 9th grades. I think once they understand the value of it, these kids are so fast in these days in terms of being just grasping things and, I would say just understanding and making sure they understand the data, value of data, and then whether it's Python or R, whatever they want to use data, I think it's. But I think most of them are doing that, I think now.
What about the role of statistics? So for example, a lot of the inferences that you make requires a basic understanding of statistics, hypothesis testing.
I'm sure you have to ask expert, but my limited knowledge is these are all different ways of doing AI. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to know statistics and to do AI, right? Yeah. It's a one way of doing that. So I would say, again, I will simplify this if I was teaching my kid or anyone else is to really understand the data. I think you need to understand how you process the data, value of data, and then what are different choices you have, in terms of statistical models, right? There are different ways you can do it. And then how you extract the value out of it, right? So those, I think, because if you go into too technical, it'll be, I think they'll get lost. I think they may lose interest. They may think it's really complex, actually, because at that age, if you teach them statistics, it'll be very, I think, that's my view. So.
I'd like to say thanks because you guys have actually addressed a lot of the questions that I had in mind for the next few parts. So I think we can actually go to the last few questions I had in mind, both from me as well as from the audience. So I guess one of the big questions that's coming up is with tensions inevitably increasing between the US and China, are we likely to see divergence in the development of AI between those two countries, much like we're seeing in, for example, 5G technology or chip manufacturing?
Maybe I can take a shot at that. So I think, as I said, China is way ahead in this area, especially because of, I don't think it was planned, but the way it has ended up is because they're focused on local language and the way they protected their internet, they didn't let Google come in, they didn't let all the big guys come in. So they made their own local companies, evolve and flourish and all that. So that has made them what they are today in terms of, just the use of data, technology, and the language, right? All those are a huge, I would say, competitive advantage that they have. Now, US, there are obviously restrictions around data. It's a so the government itself, they don't want any government to do anything, right? Versus China. So I think that's going to be a challenge, because it's in US it's more organic, right? Where the private companies are evolving, but private companies don't own everything, right? So that's going to be a challenge, because with AI, if you need if you're talking about a country-wide strategic initiatives, I don't think US has like a strategic initiative, because they don't really have the data strategy around it. Although they may have a kind of it, but they don't really have that strategy or alignment. So I think as long as you have that disconnect, I don't think that it's going to be, and also I don't think there's going to be a fight like 5G on this, because China owns the data, US owns their own data. So so I don't think, of course, as I said, the data privacy laws that China just put together, the CSL, the China Security Law, that is to protect their internet, that data. Now, US hasn't come up with yet, because they don't want everybody else to do that, because they want their companies to go and access to data. GDPR, Europe has already done that. So I don't think I don't think it's going to be a fight on AI. I mean, it's more on data. So that's my sense.
Thank you.
I offer an answer in the sense that, in Singapore, we had the best of both worlds, we would benefit from two different innovation from US, the innovation from China. And if we see beyond the geopolitics argument they have right now, the opportunity right now for Singapore is amazing. It's like if you're here, you have access to two different technology, and you can take this and you can create something and bring it to the world, right? And I can see things like the computer vision, SenseTime's leading that, right? And I think they just beginning to make Singapore like a base to internationalize their operation. These are the opportunities right now fall into our lap. Alibaba is setting up a huge office here. It fall into our lap. It's in Singapore. So we are lucky. In this situation, we benefits.
Okay, from my perspective is that for both countries like US and China's, they're actually doing very similar research in terms of modeling. Like when you have a big language model like BERT, which is very famous in our line, then China will have the maybe Chinese BERT, or like So I mean these two countries are kind of like competing, but in a healthy way, like to push the border of the technologies. So I don't want to see that this country like to separate and they don't like work together anymore. But in fact, actually now the researchers of these two countries are collaborating a lot. Like if you look at the paper published in the top conference, there's always like maybe Chinese professors with some researchers in US, or maybe a US professor with some researcher in China. So I think this is a very healthy way so that all our human beings can enjoy the benefit of AI. So for Singapore context, I think like what David said, we're in a very good position. We can enjoy what AI can benefit us, and also like think about how can we like lead a certain part of it. Like for example, in Southeast Asia, there are so many different countries speaking so many different languages. Can you do something for like especially for these countries? Or maybe for computer vision, like some of the countries are like Muslim countries, some of the countries are following other religions. So can we do something like tailored to these countries? So I think this is what we can do, like to contribute. That's it.
Thanks very much. I think just what Bo Sheng was talking about, the idea that even though there is competition, there is still a great deal of cooperation. I think that itself is a hopeful note to this conversation. I thought I'd just end with a question from the audience. I think David would be the most likely candidate to address this first. It's a fairly long question, but the main part of this question is, how can we use AI to make supply chain more consistent? Because today, the biggest problem within supply chains is that there is inconsistent data and multiple human errors. So is there a way that we can use AI to reduce wastage and improve resource allocation?
Okay. Actually, I think it's actually quite advanced already right now in the supply chain and using AI and data. First, the data that must be there is clean, and that is part of digitization. And that right now works, and it's very easy to get data right now through access your mobile or computer or whatever it is. So you get clean data, and everything else, is measurable. So the data is there. Then AI for the model, the challenges in the supply chains, let's say routing, traveling salesman problem. Actually, I spoke with a researcher in NTU that used AI to solve the traveling salesman challenge. Those things people are researching in there. So to me, that field is mature. And okay, supply chain software company, which most organizations will use supply chain software company. The software vendor, we call those guys ERP vendor, right? In do this, right? Now I was from Oracle, so I know. Planning. Yeah, so I was there and I think so. Long they are already embedding technology now to make it available to the user. They're embedding it in the technology. The system of records will capture the information about all the information supply chain. They got the information. To them right now is about just putting the AI, the model inside there to make the process better. It's just that the new generation of whatever they do, they always say is BI enabled and AI enabled, so to make this better. Yeah, and then hope I answered the questions. I found that there's a well-researched area. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I guess just to close, I think I'd like to get your thoughts, maybe just a single phrase, for example. In the next 10 years, what are you guys looking forward to seeing what do you think AI will spring up in the next 10 years? Maybe just quickly go with Naveen first.
I don't know. I think it's going to help the mankind, I think, especially around healthcare. I think we will see some amazing changes with AI.
Bo Sheng?
I think we will learn how to live with machine in the next 10 years. Yeah.
So for me, it's that I will say all the good things about AI nowadays. So what AI is not. AI is not awareness. Awareness and intelligence is a different thing. AI can replace intelligence, but cannot replace awareness. So human beings, subjective, face-to-face meeting, human-to-human connection will never be able to be replaced by AI. So we'll do more of that kind of work, and this type of intelligent work we'll probably do the AI. So we'll live in a world, a society that has a lot more leisure time to live a good life in a thriving society.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say thanks once again to Naveen, Bo Sheng, and David for joining us for this panel discussion. I also want to say thanks to all the audience members who've contributed questions and participated in this discussion. Of course, I don't think this discussion ends here because a lot of our panelists are still on the Hoover platform as well. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to raise them up there. We'll be happy to reach out to our panelists and hopefully get you answers as well. I'd like to say thanks to the organizers of STCAI for inviting both the panelists as well as myself and giving us this opportunity to have this discussion. So thank you very much, and I'd like to hand my time back to Harris, Alex, and Rishabh. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adithya.
Rishabh, any plans for now?
Just a minute.
You're on mute, Rishabh, I think.
Yeah, just a second. I'm just setting up. Hey, can you see me? Hey, can you hear me? Okay, okay. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists for being with us today from 4:30 p.m. Definitely, we are very honored to have your time, and I definitely got a lot of insight from this particular panel discussion. AI for social unity is something that I wanted, to discuss in this particular conference itself. So it's a topic that we came up with a lot of discussions, and I think that's some topic that I feel should be discussed because AI is at the ever developing thing, and if it's used well for social unity, then good, because it can have adverse effects. But from this discussion, we can definitely believe that there is a lot of potential, and there's definitely a lot of good that AI is doing for the social unity. And again, Sixth World Conference theme, the AI for a better world. So again, I thank you all for being with us today, and look forward to staying in touch. Alex.
Yeah, just a couple
Thank
of
you.
words. Yeah, also I'd like to express my sincerest appreciation to all of you for coming down here today in the evening. Like, there are definitely a lot of insightful responses, and we have definitely learned a lot through this panel discussion. Also, thank you to Adithya for your beautiful performance as a moderator. I was actually very impressed, and I thought that you led the discussion very well. Yeah.
Thank you for the chance.
So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Naveen, Bo Sheng, as well as Mr. David. Yeah, I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Have a good day.
All right.
Thank you
Have
so
a
much.
good
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care. Okay.
Alex, is there a debrief of sorts?
The day one is over. People. Huh?
Well, actually, there's nothing much left.
So
Okay.
we'll
Maybe
finish
you might want to join us for the closing ceremony tomorrow, if you're interested. Yeah,
What time is it?
it is at 6 p.m. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try that. Thank you very
It's
much.
okay if you can't
Thanks
join.
for having me.
Yeah, but
I'll try.
really happy to have you. I don't know, maybe for the next conference, we might get a chance to have you again. Who knows?
I don't
Hey,
mind.
Oh my God.
Adithya,
Hi, Rishabh.
you did a fantastic job, man. I really enjoyed your panel discussion. The way you, like
Thank
what
you very much.
Alex said it, you really just laid the foundation for discussion and really handled it well. Really quite impressed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we had you on board. Yeah.
Okay, I guess if nothing
All right, all the
else,
best, man.
yeah, we can end this call then. All the best
Take
to
care,
your
guys.
career.
All the best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
everyone.
You too.
Have a good day.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.